have caught up with 20-year-old filmmaker Kohl Harrington as he gathers footage for his new documentary examining the power of religion in the South. Here are some excerpts from his first ever interview, where he shared his thoughts on family and filmmaking, as well as upcoming and past projects.
Known what I want to do, always known what I like. I knew I liked filmmaking, even though I didn't really know what filmmaking was. And I grew up in a town that was very small, didn't have a lot of opportunity for filmmaking. I packed my bags after I graduated high school. I went to Los Angeles, and it was the best thing that I could have ever done for myself. When I moved, whenever I told my parents I wanted to move to Hollywood, they were not very excited. They did everything in their power to get me to stay. You'll be living 2,000 miles away, and that's the one thing that bugs me, is because if I get homesick or if I want to, sometimes I get to where all I want to do is walk across the patch, 100 yards to see my Aunt Wanda, and that's something I can't do. They're very excited about the project I'm doing on, the documentary I'm doing on religion, and sort of capturing where I grew up and where they've lived most of their life on the film for other people to see, to say, here's where I come from, this is what it is, it's great, it's got bad parts, it's a community like everybody else, or like everywhere else. They're very supportive of the documentary. It's a topic that they voice their opinion on. My mom is more religious, my dad is less religious, but they're able to live together. So that's sort of a cool dynamic that I get to take and sort of base the whole entire film on. That there's two people living in my household that I grew up with, actually four, counting my sister, me, my sister, my mom, and my dad, who had four different opinions but are able to live together and love each other.
Why this topic? What made you decide to tackle this topic? I mean, especially after the last one, which I want to talk about your last movie in a minute.
Okay.
But
so, see, perfect words to put it. I chose the topic of religion first off because a lot of people say stay away from religion and politics you don't want to talk about, but religion to me is something everyone can talk about, think about. It's what people always think about, no matter what you believe, what religion you are. Everyone thinks about where did we come from, where are we going when we die, and if we should be religious or not.
This potter represents God, and the clay that was in the potter's hand represents his. I just believe, the problem we're having today in society or in the school is a lack of prayer. I believe we had prayer back in the schools, we had the Bible back in the schools, we see it changing. God, even though it's all the children, and we're supposed to teach the children God's love. And I just believe if we go back to that, I mean, when I growed up in school, we didn't have these problems we have in schools today because we prayed in the morning. Bible reading occasionally, and I believe that's the problem today. I'm glad there are people that are still standing up.
Then you're on. So I wanted to make a film to show how powerful the religion is in the South, and if we can live more tolerant in a more tolerant society.
this is a rather touchy subject. Have you had any problems getting people to talk to you, or how's that going? How is the whole process?
When it comes to getting people to participate in the documentary, I've had a lot of great people come up who are, they're atheists, or I've had a couple of Muslims come up and say, we've been discriminated in society, and we want to tell that not all Muslims are terrorists. Here in America, they think Muslims are terrorists. We want to share our story. We're just like everyone else. But when it comes to people who, mostly in the South, and people who are Christian, they don't want to, I don't know if it's because they don't want to question their own belief, but they're not comfortable talking to me. So that is the only problem I'm facing, is trying to get Christians to talk about why do you believe what you believe, and what do you think about the world outside of Christianity. I like controversial subjects whenever it comes to documentaries. I'm a big fan of documentary films. I love watching documentaries. I've loved making documentaries, even though I'm only on my second, third documentary. But I feel like documentaries represent real life. You're able to take a camera into a real situation and just tape it, and what you see on the screen is what the situation is. There's no dramatization, there's no fake anything. It's people's opinions, people's lives on screen.
I understand your film has received some notice, your last film.
So I did a film called A Broken System. It was chronicling the death penalty. It was a very fun and interesting film because I took the different approach of seeing what goes on behind the death penalty. I was lucky enough to talk with an executioner who executed inmates in the Florida State Prison in the electric chair. I spoke with a man who spent 17 years on death row for a crime he didn't commit, and I spoke with a woman whose daughter was brutally murdered, but she learned to forgive the killer and actually petitioned against the killer's execution. She didn't want her daughter's murderer to die. And I spoke with a man who watched his brother die in the gas chamber in California. So these are all different stories that you don't hear in the news every day. When you hear about a man who murdered or raped or beat someone and is being put to death, you don't hear about what about the executioner, what about the family members, what about all of these hundreds of people that go into this one execution, how are they affected? So I wanted to tell those type of stories because it's something you don't hear every day.
I know you've worked on 2012, the death penalty piece now, and you're working on, you have another project that's also, what is that about?
I'm working with, first off, I'm a student, so I'm sort of wrapping up school, stepping into, I guess, the real life, and I'm just working on a couple of projects. One with Cecilia Peck. Her father was a famous actor, Gregory Peck. She directed a documentary on her father, A Conversation with Gregory Peck. She directed a documentary called Shut Up and Sing, which chronicled the Dixie Chicks after Natalie Maines made the infamous remark about being ashamed the president is from Texas. Called the Lenore Documentary Project. It follows Lenore Abergil, who was Miss Tel Aviv in 1998, and she competed in the Miss World pageant. But before she competed in the Miss World pageant, she was attacked, raped, and almost murdered. And just a month later, she competed in the Miss World pageant and won the crown. No one knew about her rape. No one knew about anything about her. She kept it all inside. So the documentary follows her 10 years later, how she's becoming open about the rape and what happened to her. She travels around the world speaking to different women and children and little girls and boys, and even at one point people who had been convicted of rape, to try to educate and open up the dialogue, because with rape comes a huge silence